years old, and I really loved drawing. I was drawing as a kid just naturally, and I think there's pictures like you that look like this as well. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you still draw? I'm sure the answer is maybe no, because unfortunately the passion for drawing gets lost at some point. And when I ask people why they stop drawing, they usually say, I can't draw. And they really believe it. However, I can tell you that this is not true, because you remembered you did it as a child, and it's really easy to learn. In this presentation, I want to tell you why you should start drawing again, and also how to get started. And as I'm talking about it, let's actually get started right away. So if you have some piece of paper around you and a pen as well, please start doodling. What do I mean by doodling? Doodling is just drawing some random shapes on the screen without really paying attention to it. It can be circles, lines, rectangles, anything. And why am I asking you to do this? That's actually for two reasons. The first one is because I want you to warm up your brain a little bit and train the muscles in your hand. And we actually remember 29% more of the information when we doodle on the side while we are listening to something. And again, this is also because of how our brain works. Just listening to something is not enough to keep our brain busy. And we might know it all, we start mind wandering. When you doodle, however, on the side, you add a simple task to your brain, and thereby the brain does not have enough capacity anymore to do something else. And it doesn't get distracted again. So please, if you can, pick up a pen and just draw something. All right, so we already heard a little bit about me, and you saw me at age 5 drawing something. And this is actually me a year ago, roughly, where I was holding up my first children's book that I had written. And I'm also, as I said, a kids book author. I do graphical recording for fun. And I'm a product manager right now at Kareem by Uber. I'll be joining Google soon, and I've been by at Salesforce and SAP. So I try to use drawing in my everyday work as much as I can. And I strongly believe that drawing for visual communication is an important skill for everyone, but especially product managers. In this presentation, I'm going to cover 3 things. The first one is how drawing helps me to understand things better, how to communicate better, and how to get started. So let's start with the first part. So we as product managers, we have to understand things all the time. And for me, drawing helps to organize my thoughts. I really think things through and I remember more as well. And that is actually, again, for a reason. It's again, because of how our brain works. When you try to draw an idea or a concept, or you try to understand something, your brain has to be engaged in so many different ways. So first you kind of think about it, and then you have to find a picture that actually works for it. How might you illustrate it? And then you have to use your hands and actually put it on paper. And that's another sense that you have to engage. So that means in the end, you have processed the information actually 3 times in different ways. And you save it in your brain as well 3 times. So for me, at the center of this is true understanding. Oh, that video didn't work. I wanted to show you a video of one of the sketch notes or graphical recordings I make. And when I do graphical recording, actually this exact thing happens. So I have to process what someone says, and then I kind of think of a picture, and then I put it on paper, and afterwards I remember much more of what was said. Another reason is simplification, and that helps a lot as well. So for example, when I joined Kareem, which is basically Uber in the Middle East, all I knew before joining was that if I click a button, there's actually a car. and I can jump into that car as a user. However, it's actually much more complex than that. And a lot happens in the background, like a cancellation, driver not coming, and also all the tech stuff that happens in the background. And when I joined, I had to understand all this. And first I tried to write it down, like as you can see on the left, but that was really difficult. And then I was drawing a picture actually with all the different steps that could happen. And I also used this to engage with others to understand the process a little better and find edge cases and things that can be improved. So the drawing actually brought all of us at the same page and helped me to understand the process by simplifying it. All right, the next part is communicate. You might not have expected this picture here, but maybe if you have full screen on, you got a little scared. So visuals have played an essential role for a long time. And from an evolutionary perspective, our eyes protect us from danger, from predators like lions and other dangerous animals. And even though we have 5 senses, 50% of the human brain is actually dedicated to visual functions. So when we see visuals, they trigger emotions. They make us happy, sad, angry, or scared. And that releases chemical in our brains. Our brains actually just love visuals. Do you still have an echo?
No.
Okay, good. Alrighty. So as I said, our brain just loves visuals. Let's look at another example. Seconds to process, because our brain processes that in a linear way, word by word. However, the picture on the left, that only needs 100 milliseconds to process and to get the message across. And you actually see this in the real world everywhere. You see it on the streets with street signs. You see it when you read the newspaper. You see it on your laptop. Icons are everywhere. And I believe that there are still too many presentations out there that are just filled with text. And maybe you can try to fill a slide or a document instead of with words, with a few images instead, because that will help people to be more engaged and they will also remember more. So you remember what you see. You actually remember 80% of what you see and do. However, only 20% of what you read and 10% of what you hear. 10% of what you hear? Yep, that is correct. And if you think about maybe what you were doing the last couple of days, your day might have looked like this, because that's what we do all day long nowadays. We sit in meetings all day long on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and either you listen to some people talking, or you're talking, or other people are listening to you talking. We do it all day long. And if you remember that only 10% of the information that we hear, we actually remember, that is pretty bad in a remote setup. And that's why I think drawing is more important than ever when we are remote. Especially as product managers, because as product managers, we do 2 things all the time. First, we have to understand our users, do our magic, and then we have to communicate, for example, to the engineers. Then we have to understand what they say, we do our magic, and then we communicate. We do the same to the business, to the marketing, sales. And at the end of the day, all we do is understanding and communicating. And for both, as you just heard, drawing is super helpful. So here is a few examples of how I use drawings in my work, in my job with Karim or Uber. On the left, it was all about vision mission in a workshop. On the top, it was about defining a new KPI. And instead of using complex formulas, actually draw an example. Then you all know this wireframes, but simple ones, really simple ones. And then this. Okay, what's this? This is actually a picture I was drawing in one of our Zoom meetings with the Zoom whiteboard. And it was all about or a discussion about how we could provide the best, most accurate ETAs to our customers. Well, the picture is clearly ugly. I'm not proud of the picture itself, but it helped me in two ways. The first one is it engaged people. They had a reason to look at this screen and not the emails or the phone or whatever. And it also brought us all on the same page. So we all looked at the same, not just mental image, but an actual image, and we could talk about the same thing. So drawing for communication is great because there is no right or wrong, and it can be really ugly as long as you get the message across. So please start using it also in your meetings. And don't be afraid. Okay, so don't be afraid, and that's why we should get started. And I hope you are doodling, by the way. So drawing is actually like learning a language. I think actually just a little bit simpler because I just said it. There is no right or wrong. I'm not sure if you know this artist here, like who was drawing this. Maybe you have a guess. I don't think this picture is beautiful or pretty. Like personally, I don't like it. However, this artist, Picasso, is really famous. So again, remember, there is no right or wrong when you draw. So why is it like learning a language? If you remember how you learned or how kids learn a language, it usually goes like this. First, the kid makes some basic sounds like wah, wah, wah. Then they learn some vocabulary like mom or dad or other things. Then they learn grammar and they form sentences like I'm hungry, mom. And then they practice and they know much more and they can speak fluently. With drawing, it's actually the same. First, you start with really basic shapes. Like we are going over them in a little bit. Then the vocabulary, which I also call the Pictionary. Afterwards, it's grammar. And I want to tell you about 4 rules that you can apply. And last but not least, it's practice and not being afraid. So the basic shapes are, and if you can, just draw them with me, a circle, a line, a rectangle, a triangle, and what I call a blurb. So any shape that's round. And with these 5 shapes, you can draw anything. You can draw the basic kindergarten picture that we've all drawn at some point, like a house with some trees. You can draw a cat, you can draw a sign, or even a light bulb. Or the horse that I was drawing when I was 5. Next is the Pictionary. So how to learn new vocabulary that you can remember and then just draw on a paper. And what I do a lot is I actually use Google as my Pictionary, and I Google a word that I want to describe, that I want to draw. For example, strategy. And then I just pick what is easy to draw. For example, this sign here, and I draw it with the basic shapes we just talked about. And this way you can basically build up, like you learned vocabulary in school or when you were a kid, you will learn new pictures that you can add to your Pictionary. Here's an example of, I don't know how old I was, maybe also 4 or 5. And I don't know why, but for some reason I was drawing a person, strength, and car, which is a car in German. And I was drawing icons for that. And I want you to remember this one because I'm going to come back to this. All right, a few more words about Pictionary. So headings, highlights, arrows, some charts or speech bubbles, these are all things that you should add to your Pictionary because you will certainly use these, especially the headings, like just drawing a circle around the word or a box. That can help a lot to structure things already. All right, moving on to grammar. So there's 4 rules I want to tell you. The first one is to keep it really simple. Like the left one is a house, the right one is a house, but the house on the right is totally enough. You don't need more than that. Then the next rule is to combine pictures. So for example, we have just added the sign to our dictionary or Pictionary. And we maybe know a human as well. And if we combine them, they could be, for example, a leader. Then use the basic shapes I've just talked about to glue things together. And there's a mistake, not combine words and text, but combine pictures and text. Because this way, again, you will save information twice in your brain. Okay. So if you have paid attention to these images before, you might have spotted these mistakes. So here you can actually see that the elbow on the left, I mean, I don't have, my muscle is not on my forearm, but on my upper arm. But you still see that strength, the word, it was clear what I meant. And I must have predicted when I was 5 that there will be self-driving cars one day. But as you can see, it doesn't really matter if your pictures are correct. It's all about just getting the message across. And that's all that counts. Yeah. So please never say, I can't draw again, because it's simply not true. I believe that everybody can draw, and I hope you think so too now. And also our brain loves visuals. So keep that in mind. If you start drawing, and then you will become a better product manager. And that's basically it. If you have been doodling, you can share your notes on Twitter, or just maybe later on in the networking. And I will come back now for some questions.